I am the Messiah. I am the Christ. I am the way and the truth and the life. Whoever does as I do will know heaven on earth. And then he said, all that I have done, you will do. But better. But better. The Messiah came to proclaim the Christ in him that is the Christ in you. There was no exclusivity. All that I have done, you will do, and better. Can you take that in? The promise in that statement? The calling in that statement? It's big. At least it is for me. Jesus said, my burden is light. Well, it's light when we stay centered in prayer and meditation. But if we're not centered in prayer and meditation and we take that statement in, for me it feels heavy. So I have to do my best to maintain spiritual balance so that I can handle the truth. The truth. And let it be light and not a burden. The ancient world at that time was a world in great flux. There was much change going on. Traditions were being trampled. I don't know how you think about that time, when you do. I know for most of my life growing up thinking about Jesus' day is kind of like, okay, everybody was kind of doing their thing. Herod was being Herod. The Roman soldiers were soldiering. The carpenters were sawing, hammering. Ladies were baking. Life was going on, and Jesus shows up with some radical ideas. It wasn't like that. It wasn't like that. The whole civilization as we knew it was changing radically at that time. The Roman Empire was expanding. And as it was expanding and taking over new cultures, culture after culture, those newly conquered people, they weren't being Romanized. They weren't being turned into good little Romans. No, their influences were changing the Romans. And so, in the empire, customs were changing. There was a process called Hellenization, originating in Greece. In the simplest terms, because I still like simple. The simplest terms, Hellenization, the core of it, as I understand it, was the beginnings of universal education. Teaching everyone, not just the elite. What happens when you do that? What happens when everyone gets educated? Everyone's eyes start to open, and they go, really? Well, why was I doing that? And traditions fall. People weren't staying in the proper places. People were not saying the proper things. People were not marrying the proper people. Sound familiar? When change begins to accelerate, many people, out of fear, will start to look outside of themselves for the answer. They will look to the next political leader, the next president. They'll look to the next spiritual movement. They'll look to the next place to live. They'll look to the next Messiah. And yet, the Christ that is alive in you yells down like a phantom through the years, through the eons. It yells down hauntingly, "Yoo-hoo!" What you're looking for, who you're looking for, you're it. You're it. The Christ in me is alive in you. The things that I have done, you will do. And better. You see, amongst all of us, really, there's only one story. Just one. Jesus' story begins with his birth. A very simple birth. And it's written of as an immaculate birth. What's an immaculate birth symbolize? Immaculacy symbolizes pure potential, unlimited possibility. Every one of us in our lives experiences times of immaculacy. Those are times, I want you to remember one now, and I'll describe what I'm saying, and bring your mind to at least one time like this in your life. It's a time when you find yourself at a crossroads, standing right in the middle of the crossroads. And at that intersection of life, you are free. You are free to move in any direction you want to go. You are free to make any decision you want to make. You are free to pursue any desire you have. And each one of us, throughout the course of our lives, have several periods like this. They're periods of immaculacy. What do we want to do? The meaning of your immaculate birth and Jesus's are the same. There's only one story. The story continues. It has a star high above, shining onto a stable, right into the stable. And that bright star, it guides the shepherds, those with a simpler understanding, simpler instincts, and it guides the wise men. Do you think there was a wise woman there too? Maybe cross-dressing? It's one of my pet theories. There's really 2 men and a woman. So the wise ones are guided. And the wise ones surrounding, they're standing there, and I want you to picture the nativity. So you've got the baby, you've got mother and father, you've got shepherds, you've got wise men and a wise woman. You've got sheep and cows, and at least one donkey chewing their grasses, looking on benignly. It's an amazing scene. It's an amazing scene. All of creation is represented in that nativity. All of life. The profane, the sacred, the simple, the complex, man, woman, and beast, and child. It's all there. For the wise ones standing around beholding this divine child, this little God seed, they saw in that child's vast, unlimited potential wisdom that was greater than their own. And so they brought gifts in worship to this unlimited potential, this holiness, gifts of myrrh and frankincense and gold. On the day you were born, I'm going to believe that people came bearing gifts to see you, to look upon you with awe and wonder. How precious, how beautiful. What eyes, what lips, what hands and feet, what perfection in you, the God's seed. You see, there was a God seed in the manger, and there was a God seed in your delivery room. There is only one story. In her book, God Seed, if you wonder where I got that term, I've never, God Seed, The Journey of Christ, Jean Houston shares this birth story. She writes, I had the wonderful experience of guiding my secretary in the last weeks of her pregnancy. Using trance and guided imagery, I told her that the initial contractions of her delivery would be felt as contractions. But then, the release would be ecstatic and joyful. And she would know that she was giving birth to the Holy Child. I told her that she would experience the birth as pure pleasure and would be saying throughout the labor, welcome, I love you. Welcome, I love you. Sending abundant love to her emerging holy child. Shortly after having her baby, she called me up and said, I just gave birth to this little boy, and I could not believe that there was so much ecstasy in the world. I felt no pain. It was pure pleasure, for I gave birth to holiness.